I still remember the exact moment my wife looked at me and said she couldn't do this anymore. There was no anger in her voice, no tears in her eyes. Just a quiet certainty, like she had already practiced the sentence in her head 100 times before saying it out loud. That same morning, I had lost my job. And standing there in our living room, I felt something break inside me that I didn't even know existed. At that time, I didn't know that 6 months later, she would be sitting alone in her apartment, staring at her television, completely frozen, when my name appeared on national news. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how everything changed, you have to understand how normal my life used to be. Before everything fell apart, my life wasn't exciting, but it was stable. I worked a corporate job that paid the bills and left me tired at the end of the day. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where every house looked almost the same. Our life followed a routine. Morning coffee, evening dinners, weekends spent grocery shopping or watching movies on the couch. My wife, Emily, used to say that she liked our life because it felt safe. She liked knowing what tomorrow would look like. She believed stability was the most important thing in a marriage. More important than passion, more important than dreams. As long as we had security, she said, everything else would fall into place. Back then, I agreed with her. I thought stability meant love. I didn't realize how fragile that kind of love really was. The day I lost my job started like any other day. I woke up early, got dressed, and kissed Emily on the forehead before leaving. She was still half asleep. Neither of us knew that by the end of the day, everything we had built together would start to collapse. HR called me into a small conference room in the afternoon. They closed the door and spoke in calm, professional voices. They talked about restructuring, budget cuts, and tough decisions. They said my performance wasn't the issue. But when they slid that paper across the table, none of that mattered. In that moment, all I could think about was how I was going to tell my wife. I drove home slowly, replaying different versions of the conversation in my head. I imagined her being worried but supportive. I imagined her telling me we'd figure it out together. I imagined us standing on the same side, facing the problem as a team. Reality was very different. When I told Emily, she listened quietly. She didn't interrupt. She didn't ask if I was okay. When I finished explaining, she asked one simple question. How long will this last? I told her the truth. I said I didn't know. That answer created a distance between us that I could feel immediately. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in our house changed. She became distant, distracted. Conversations turned into short exchanges. She started spending more time on her phone, laughing at messages she never shared with me. She came home later than usual. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself she just needed time. Meanwhile, I threw myself into finding a new job. I updated my resume, applied everywhere, reached out to old contacts. I woke up early every morning, sat at my desk, and tried to stay hopeful. But every rejection email felt like another reminder that I was failing her. One night during dinner, she finally said what she had been thinking. She told me she didn't sign up for struggle. She said she wanted a life that moved forward, not backward. She said she needed stability, ambition, and certainty. I tried to explain that setbacks happen, that this was temporary, that I was still the same person she married. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. 2 weeks later, she handed me divorce papers. There was no argument. No long discussion. Just papers on the table and a calm voice telling me she had already made up her mind. She said she needed to think about her future. She packed her things quickly, efficiently, like someone checking items off a list. When she walked out the door, the house felt empty in a way I had never experienced before. After she left, everything fell apart. Friends didn't know what to say, so they stopped calling. Family members tried to comfort me, but their words felt distant. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every decision, wondering where I went wrong. I questioned my worth as a husband, as a man, as a person. There were days I didn't even leave the house. I stopped caring about how I looked. I stopped caring about time. The silence felt heavy. But slowly, something unexpected started to happen. When you lose everything, you stop trying to impress people who have already decided to leave. I stopped worrying about how I looked to others. I stopped chasing approval. Instead, I started listening to myself for the first time in years. There was an idea I had been carrying for a long time. An idea I had talked about but never acted on because it felt risky. When I still had my job and my marriage, I was afraid to fail. Now, failure didn't scare me anymore. I was already at the bottom. I used what little savings I had and started working on that idea. Quietly. No announcements. No social media posts. I worked long hours, learning things from scratch, making mistakes, fixing them, then making new ones. There were nights I wondered if I was wasting my time. There were moments I almost gave up. But something was different this time. I wasn't doing it to prove anything to anyone. I was doing it because it gave me purpose. Slowly, progress began to show. One small success led to another. One connection opened a door I didn't expect. Months passed. I stayed invisible. I stayed focused. And without realizing it, my life began to rebuild itself from the ground up. 6 months after the divorce, everything changed again. This time, in a way I never imagined. One evening, a major story broke on national news. A company had disrupted an entire industry almost overnight. Analysts were shocked. Reporters kept repeating one name. My name. That same evening, Emily was sitting in her apartment, scrolling through her phone, not thinking about me at all. When the news segment started, she barely paid attention. Then she heard my name. She looked up at the screen. And there I was. The man she left because he was unstable was now being called a visionary. The same man she thought had no future was being interviewed by reporters who wanted to know how he turned everything around. Her phone started buzzing. Mutual friends were messaging her. Some congratulated her, assuming she was still my wife. Others asked what it felt like to be married to someone so successful. She didn't know what to say. A few days later, she reached out to me. It was the first time she had contacted me since the divorce. Her message was polite, careful. She said she was proud of me. She said she always believed in my potential. I read her words slowly. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt clarity. I replied briefly and respectfully. I wished her well. That was it. Because the truth is, the real victory wasn't being on the news. It wasn't success or recognition. The real victory was learning who I was when everything was taken away. I learned that some people love you only when life is comfortable. And that's not the kind of love you should build your life around. If you're watching this and you're at your lowest point, I want you to remember something. Being underestimated hurts. Being abandoned hurts even more. But sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. Growth happens quietly. And when your moment finally comes, you won't need revenge. Your life will speak for itself.